Welcome to Mourning Call, a podcast where we share our experiences around letting go of grief and learn to move with grace through mourning. We are your hosts, Alyce Christina
and Crystal Lee, two friends who connected through yoga and movement and ultimately found a deeper connection over our own parental losses.
We share how our experiences have informed us to live our lives more authentically, boldly, and in the now so that you can do the same. We believe where there is pain, there is transformation.
From the loss of a loved one to change in a career, a heartbreak, identity shift, and many other forms of loss, we walk this path together.
To discover the light within the darkness, we recognize the joy within pain and invite you to dive in with us as we share in the hope, laughter, and lightness of the mourning journey.
Join us for stories, interviews, and conversations that connect us as we explore the universal experience of loss that invokes the becoming of one's true self.
Welcome back to the Mourning Call podcast. Today we're going to be talking about milestones, milestone dates, and if you honor and recognize them, and if you do, how we being Alyce and I, but just people in general tend to honor and or recognize milestone dates around loss. So given that we just came off of Mother's Day here in the US today when we're recording it, it's going to be coming out a little bit later, but we just came off of Mother's Day here in the US. I wanted to kick it off with turning it over to you, Alyce, and how you honored and recognized your mom on Mother's Day.
Holidays in general have just taken on such a different meaning for me, especially since I lost my mom in 2020. And I think even prior to it, like my big holiday that I always got kind of stuck on was Valentine's Day. And I was like, why do we wait to February 14th to celebrate how we love each other, right? Like that should be every single day. And yeah, and if you do wait till that one day to express your love for the people you love, maybe there's something more to reevaluate.
Yeah, let's do some thinking here.
And Mother's Day specifically, I think I've come to recognize that it's not just about honoring my own mother. It's about honoring the people in your life that nurture me and that mother me in so many different ways. Some days it's like it goes in and out. It really is dynamic. Some years I want to go all out and celebrate and it to be an outward expression. And other times I don't want it to be. And I think what does make a huge impact is like the people that I surround myself with, that can reach out and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Of course, I'm always, I think it's become more of a daily habit to see my mom in all the moments, and it's not just that one day. And even this year, we had a wedding and children weren't invited to it. So I wasn't even with Amelia on Mother's Day. Amelia's my daughter. And even having a conversation with her of like, hey, we can celebrate this anytime. Just because the United States is celebrating it all on one day doesn't mean like if we could do it on Monday. We could do it on Tuesday. We can do it every day, right? Like having that sense of celebration. And then she's like, well, what about Daughter's Day? I'm like, girl, every day is Daughter's Day.
Well, I was going to say every day should be Mother's Day because mothers are, I say it all the time, mothers are like the hardest working, just most amazing creatures literally that exist on this entire planet, and we should honor them and bow down to them like every day. So yeah, every day should be Mother's Day.
Yeah.
For sure.
And also like I think it's important to recognize too the different ways that we mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even whether you're a mom to a fur baby, but like not being like a mother in the normal sense of having a child. There are so many, my experiences of you nurture me, even on Mother's Day, just by simply sending me a text and saying, thinking of you, holding your heart, like, and that is something to be honored and celebrated uh, every day.
Well, and this, it also, you're saying that, yeah, I mean, yes, we need to recognize it on the day. Everybody else, if you don't recognize your mom on Mother's Day, you're in trouble. And, it harkens back to like what you're saying, harkens back to when we talked about like the veil being lifted, because I think after a loss, I think maybe we're more attuned and hyper aware of like the, I don't know, the like preciousness, is that even a word? Or like brevity of life. And so you're like, every day we should be celebrating each other, like, period. Mothers, fathers, sisters, friend, like, I don't know. I think it just helps you see that like every day is precious. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And like however you identify, right? It is like it's parenting. It's like, take away the titles of mother, father, it's nurturing. How are we nurturing one another? And it's interesting, for the whole, I'm pretty sure the whole maybe even year and a half, maybe even 2 years, my dad went to my mom's gravesite every single day. Right. And that's just where he found peace, I guess, and I did not. I did not want to go to my mom's gravesite. I still don't go. I think about it every once in a while. And then that's when I see a cardinal or a butterfly. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't need to go to that physical space because she's here with me. She's right here with me, walking hand in hand. And I think that's the practice and the fluidity of walking with grief hand in hand.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit, just because you know, I think people do honor and recognize in their own ways. Like some are more outward with it, or like maybe the physical manifestation of it, like your dad visiting her grave. Um, and I don't think there's any like right or wrong way. And some people are, maybe either not ready to do it the physical, and they're like, I need to express it in my own way, privately, or just internally acknowledging. Um, and that's okay. So what are like the different ways, you mentioned like the cardinal and the butterfly. What are the like maybe some other ways that are like more not maybe not like outward showing that you express. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the first thing that came up for me, it's like every day I wear my mom's jewelry, right? And like for me, that is like adorning myself in the things that she wore day in and day out. Her amethyst ring, I'm not wearing it right now, but I wear her wedding band every day.
I have my grandmother's on, which is so funny.
Yeah, and it's, to me that is just a daily reminder on Mother's Day. It's like this Mother's Day, it was I think Hudson and I just had a conversation about my mom. We were also at a wedding the day before, and I was like uber emotional. I'm not sure if it was like the Aurora Borealis where the stars were, or um, and the thoughts were like, oh, my mom is never going to get to see this experience for Hudson and I if we ever decide to do it, or um and so there's like a bit of like grieving in that moment. And there's also like just the celebration that like Well, I'm grateful that though one time I didn't do the act of a big wedding, like my mom was there and we got to dance together and go dress shopping together and like have that experience. So it's just, I think for me, it really is about the remembering, right? And being able to celebrate those small moments that we had and the big moments that we had together.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I lost my grandmother 2 years ago. So like, I think my like primary or initial first big loss was my dad, but like my grandmother and I were very close. And she was 89. People get older, you sort of quote expect it. Um, but it was very devastating for me. I mean, she was a huge presence in my life. And anyway, this is actually kind of hilarious. I have two small wedding bands, and one of them I lost, and I was like, I couldn't find it. I was devastated. I didn't know where it went. Um, and my husband was about to like, but not that I need two wedding bands. Who needs two? You only need one. But anyway, he was like, I'm gonna get you another one. And my mom sent me or gave me the one like band for my grandmother, and I was like, I don't even want one from you, babe. Like this is perfect. Like I don't even need to shop. And wearing that, to your point, wearing that every day, it's not really like, yes, it's a physical thing, but like no one's really looking at my hand. It's not this like big outward gesture, but like having her close like that, I love that. That's such a good one.
Yeah, I mean, thinking of some more, like my grandmother loved yellow. She loved wearing yellow. So sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, I need to wear yellow like mama," and whether it's on Mother's Day or um I've heard, or like my mom cooked jambalaya. That was like her, and she taught me how to cook jambalaya, the New Orleans recipe. And so even in those moments, like when I'm cooking something that she used to cook, like that is a celebration. And whether I do that on Mother's Day or on, her death anniversary, or I think at this point, when like her death anniversary comes around in July, up until this point, my dad's been pretty adamant about us all going to the cemetery together, which I suck up. Not because I want, like it's not my thing. And or on her birthday. Also on her birthday, my dad usually asks that we go with him. And I think more so it's about holding the space for him, because that's where he finds his peace.
It's tricky with family dynamics, like some, I mean, this is with anybody, it could be your friends, right? Like how your, I mean, whatever, how my friends are going to grieve their parental losses versus mine, it's going to be different, right? And like same, like my sisters, oh, all three of us and my mom grieve very differently and how we showed it or didn't show it or whatever. And like I would say that, not necessarily that I'm more like your dad, but I think like there was something about having something like physically outward, like in the world, remembering him, while like some of my sisters maybe didn't need that as much. Like they were like, and it's, in the moment, it's hard to balance all of those potentially sometimes conflicting desires, right? Like you're like, I don't really need to do that. Like you said, like you're like, I feel mom with me. Like I don't feel like I need to go to the physical grave. And then he feels like he needs that, and trying to all balance each other's needs. It's tricky. It's hard.
It's tricky. And I believe that I have the tools that I need to be able to show up for my dad in those moments. And 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 not everybody is at that time or space or has the capacity in the moment. And and I think that there is too like such a, I mean, my sister and I talk. We don't talk as much as we should. We live like literally down the street from each other. Our lives are busy. And, you know, on Mother's Day, on my mom's birthday, you know, for me, it is important. We were both out of town for Mother's Day this year. So, but it was important for me to call, and like just check in. Right. usually if it's, in the past, we have made a point to be with each other, and be with my dad on the day that mom passed. Like, and having that, that is a sense of comfort, I think, for all of us. Because too, that was one of the things that, like, one of the last things mom asked is like, just be there for each other.
Yeah, so you like have to honor that. Yeah.
That's like, yeah. I mean, we don't have to, but
Well, yeah.
like we do,
We don't have
we
to do
do
anything
choose
in this
to do
life, but
that.
you're like, we
Absolutely.
probably should.
Yeah, that is, I mean, we choose to make an effort to, um, and then it was like, even I went to brunch with some girlfriends, and one of our friends' mothers just moved here, and now she's starting to take care of her mother, and so everyone was just kind of talking about their moms, and I mean, I would throw my 2 cents in every once in a while, and after a bit of the conversation, one of our friends, Tori, looked at me and just said, "Hey, are you okay? Like, we're talking about our moms, like, this must be hard for you." And just this simple, and I did kind of laughed about it, and at the same time she asked, like, I just the emotion, a well of tears just came right to surface, because I am okay, and I love hearing, like, I want my friends, especially the people that I love, to, like, I want to hear about their lives and what's going on with them, and the simple act of just checking in. And, and I was like, really, like, I think I said something funny about we're trying to remember the last time that had happened to me, or like what my mom would say about this. And at the same time, it was like, oh, like, I was okay. And on the other side, I was like, oh, I'm not, because I'm having this moment of like, I don't have my mom to talk about
Yeah, I know.
in
I
this moment.
know. And even just the simple recognition from her, though, is so. I follow a lot of accounts that are like, and let me preface this with people are doing their best when they're trying to, send you their condolences and express their sadness for a loss, right? So people are truly doing their best, but a lot of them are like, what? Not to say it to a griever or something. And I feel like a lot of them just repeat. But the main thing to like say is just like, not that there's a magic phrase, but it's like just acknowledging. Like you don't have to say a magic thing. It's like just being there and saying like, I'm sorry this happened. Or like, hey, you know, this has to be hard for you. Like those words from her, like just acknowledging that, like, yeah, you're okay, but like it is tough, like sitting there listening people talk about their moms when yours not isn't around. And so just the acknowledgement that, like, I know this has to be tough, and that's it. It's like a magical experience, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, again, like, even those little moments, like, um, it sheds a mask of, like, it's courage, it's vulnerability, it's like all the things that I think that I want to be in the world. And it removes, like, it removes a I don't want to say a fakeness, but just a mask of, like, trying to hold it all together, right? Like, and like it's okay to not be okay, And it's like I'm thinking about another moment, like, I traveled to Mexico with a group of friends in March, and it was one of our last days there, and I don't know how we started talking about it, but we started talking about my mom and, like, the experience, and like having that moment, like literally drinking margaritas in a bar, and just being able to reflect, and like my people holding that space for me. And like, and then next thing you know, we're all in tears, cheersing not only my mom, but all of our moms and our parents. And, like, that was just such a, like, I feel like those moments need to happen for everyone, whether it's a parent you lost, a pet you lost, a relationship you lost, having those moments too. And I think that that's what mourning is finding those moments to celebrate what was, because we have the power to allow that to inform our ways of being moment to moment.
It reminds me of at this moment, one of the episodes we just released, where we talked about like the duality of, mourning and joy to exist together because like you really cannot have one without the other. Like it's like they say grief is love with nowhere to go. So like they're almost opposites. Like you cannot grieve without having had love at some point. So what are you going to do? Just live your whole life and never experience love? Like if you opt into love, you will feel grief. And if you opt into joy, which we all, I mean, joy sometimes just happens to us, but like, you're going to experience the other side of the coin. You're going to have sorrow. So why not like lean into the celebrating with the margaritas and cheersing our friends and cheersing our friends' parents, and because there's going to be the other side. So, let's lean into both. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, like you said, like the brevity of life, it is there, it is upon us. Like time is moving so quickly. And our time here is relatively short. So how are we I think it is a distinct choice that we all have of like, you know, whatever our adversity is, to either get stuck in the grief, or to, you know, and not even like, when we are stuck in it, because I'm not saying we're not going to get stuck in it, like allowing that to inform how we choose to live.
Your experience in Mexico with your friends just reminds me of something we talked about right before jumping on, is kind of like found family, right? Like I think um, different types of loss, not just death loss, but like divorce and, job loss, even all these different types of loss illuminate your circle. I think like it illuminates who is able to hold space for you. Um, and sometimes it's like it sounds like I know you have an amazing group of friends, but it sounds like those people there, especially with you in Mexico, are like, able to hold space for you, or your friend Tori asking in that moment, at lunch. And it really, I feel like loss just illuminates like who those people are for you. And yeah, it's like a found family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, even just thinking, it's like another friend, Melanie, will, I think maybe it was around my mom's birthday, and she was like, and we met, gosh, I guess it was after my mom had passed. So, and she is just so good about, like, in moments, just being like, I didn't know her, and like, what do you need right now? What is required for you? Like, do you need a listening ear? Do you need a hug? And having those people. And then it's even like my sister will just shoot me a text and like, I'm really, because on the other side of that, like, she's truly the only one that can really understand how I feel, and how we celebrate or honor in moments is completely different. Like, this podcast is a way, I feel like, for both of us, for celebrating and honoring our parents and that legacy that um they've given us, whether conscious or
Yeah,
unconsciously.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And not everyone's going to launch a podcast and feel comfortable like talking about it, right? So like this is kind of one avenue and we're both comfortable doing this, but um that makes me your story makes me think of two things. So my sisters and I um you, my dad was like typical dad jokes guy, right? Like terrible corny dad jokes, which I love stupid dad jokes. But often on the day, instead of doing something like this that's more like in-depth talking or whatever, we'll just share stupid dad jokes that are like so bad and so dumb, but it's like a really great way to honor him. I mean, my mom is included too in all those, but it's like funny that it's a funny way to honor him. And then the other piece was my best friend. I mean, she's my best friend for a reason. I've known her since I was 4. Is one of those people who, on the day of my dad's birthday or like his death anniversary, like, I mean, I have a handful of friends like this, especially some friends from college who are like, they're so able to be present on those days. And to your point, it's just dropping a text like, "Hey, I'm thinking of you today." I mean, that's it. But they don't forget, and but she lives in Hawaii and she had just flown back from like stateside to Hawaii. And I'll never forget this. She got on a flight immediately to come back stateside and like be with me. And I mean, I'm like tearing up. Like now, I'm like, the fact that she did that, I mean, it's like, I literally am at a loss for words. Like the fact that I was like, you don't have to do that. She's like, yes, I do. Like I have to be with you. And I could feel even her pain because she knew my dad most of her life as well when she was there and we were talking about him and the loss. I mean, it was just like, it's like your people show up. Your people show up.
Yeah, I mean that is so special. I think I had a similar experience of just, you know, the way community banded around surrounded us with like love and being held. And I think that's um my mom had such amazing connections with other women, older women, that I'm like, "Oh, she did this for a reason." I don't know if she knew why she did it, but she did it for a reason, and I'm still like, even on Mother's Day, like, our whole family was close with she was one of my first dance teachers. My sister babysat for her boys. I wound up babysitting for her boys. Uh, our families have just always been close. Miss Miller, I will still call her Miss Miller. Her name's Claudette. And like even this Mother's Day, she sent me a message. I sent it back, like, Happy Mother's Day. Just thank you for always checking in, being there for me. And then she, wrote back, she has 3 boys. She was like, "You're the daughter I never had." And, just that like, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm the daughter you have," because
Right.
as
Oh,
much as, as much as I am my mother and father's child, it's like they have also, you know, given me permission to like to be able to show up for people. And and Miss Miller has been someone that's nurtured me and um in so many different ways. And not just me, but my parents and my sister. And it's a really special thing to get to experience, and to have those people show up for you. Tori and Kirst moved out of their house when my mom passed away to house my cousins that came up, and their family. Um, another friends of ours, they were actually clients of mine, also moved out of their home after, gosh, I guess my family was going through hurricane. It wasn't Irene, maybe? I don't know. Can't remember now. Like a year. No, I guess it was a couple months after my mom had passed, because my aunt came up and my aunt was still battling pancreatic cancer, and they moved. Actually, they weren't staying there as their second home, but allowed my family to live in their house, while they were here escaping the hurricane. And um, even their neighbors cooked us dinner one night. And I just, the generosity and humanity of people, is just like, that is like the kind of hope and love that I thrive on.
yeah. I mean, like that, like, not found family, but I mean, it is found family, but like community and I know we want to talk about community on like its whole episode, but it cannot be underestimated, and like the impact it can have at any time in life, but especially at these moments. Like I have a funny story that my husband and I would, I grew up in church. My best friend's mom, that best friend I just mentioned, was our pastor growing up. She married us. She did my dad's service. Um, and I mean, when my dad passed, my husband and I have been together for, I mean, years. I don't even know how long, but like a long time. And he had come to my home church with me. We'd even gone to some churches in Charlotte together, like whatever. Like he knew the church thing was like a part of my life. And then when we had my dad's service, like to your point, it was like a light bulb went off. This is years and years after being together, and he's been to the church before. He was like, "Oh my God, like, wait, now I get it." Because he saw that community, and community doesn't always have to be a spiritual community, but he saw the way people stepped in. I mean, our church people were the first people like to get to the hospital, like where with my dad and like my mom and my sister there, and same when my grandmother died. Like our church family showed up at the hospital first, like almost before we could get there, and just the way they stepped in to be at the house to help with things around the house for my mom, like for months and months afterwards, not just the week of. Like people would just show up and be mowing her lawn without her asking, breaking in the trash again without her asking, like fixing things. They would just like she would wake up to like random men in the yard. She's like, ah. So, and he was like,
Well, that's fun.
I know, I know, right? It was so funny. I know, right? She's like, oh, hello, gentlemen. Um, but my husband was like, oh my God, like I get it. So anyway, it was just funny.
And I love that. And I think that's one of the points of this conversation specifically. It's like no matter how you choose to, right? Because it's a choice. You can or you can't. Celebrate, remember, honor, recognize, whether it's an outward expression, whether it's an internal thought, right? Doing it together, right? Even if you just talk to one person about it, right? That is a sense of support in knowing that like you don't have to do it alone, right? Like, and I think that there is something to be said for no matter what the expression is, like even when it's internal, I find so much comfort in being able to have the conversation, whether it's in the moment or an afterthought, right? Like whether it's for a birthday, whether it's for the death anniversary, whether it's for, I mean, we've talked about, I think outside of this conversation, we've talked about like, I remember the my first wedding anniversary, right? And just it's like an internal recognition of like, oh, that's a past version of myself. That's a past life I lived. Um, and it's almost like at this point, I get a sense of honoring how much I've grown from that experience and from that loss of like not just the wedding anniversary, but also when we separated, right? And that date and knowing that like I changed the course of my life in that moment. And in the beginning, it was super scary. And now it's like, oh, there's something because I grew from that.
Well, and those are days, it's like the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Like those are days that are emblazoned into your like physical body. Like you're not going to forget them. Um, so to your point, it's like you're going to internally honor them whether you want to or not. Like it's in your brain, it's in your body, those are stored there.
And it's like, sorry to interrupt. And I think we often look at least I know I did for a long time, like that day, almost with like a sense of resentment or anger or frustration. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, right? But it was also there. I remember there was a distinct point where I shifted out of that anger or resentment. And it's almost like I was able, I was going to sound real corny and woo woo right now. I was able to see the light, but it wasn't oop, knocking my smoothie over. It wasn't an, it wasn't an external light. It was my own light, right? It was the power of like making the choice to forgive not only someone else, but myself first, and to start making a very intentional, conscious choice of how I was living and honoring these past experiences.
Well, and that brings up a good point to how these milestone dates ebb and flow, right? Like, and you mentioned this earlier in the discussion about like, you know, like in relation to those marriage dates, I think it's like a shift over time of how it like changed for you, how those dates maybe went from like something maybe more negative to like a more quote positive. And I think that whether it's the birth of your daughter, like a death anniversary of our parents, um, whatever it is, like sometimes you want to acknowledge it and like I'm just thinking, I'm making no sense. But like for my 40th, for some reason I was like, I don't really. It was 5 years after my dad passed. It was like kind of like a while after, but I just was not into it. Like something about 40, I was like, not even the age. I love getting older, but like I just did not want to do something big. It made me sad. It made me think about him and like him missing this and then like this year I'm like, yeah, I'm celebrating my birthday. You know, like it's just like it's like the up and down of how these dates can change over time is so interesting. And we don't have to be locked into, well, this is how we always do it, or this is how I should feel. Like, no, sometimes you're gonna feel good, bad, otherwise, you know?
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mourning Call. Stay tuned for a few more moments and responses of our listeners and community of how they honor or recognize their own milestone days of loss.
Hello, Alyce and Crystal. I just wanted to respond for your request about how you honor like these anniversary dates for loved ones that we've lost. I felt really called to, send something in just because I have a little bit of an interesting, circumstance with this. So my best friend Ben passed away really unexpectedly in 2019. And he actually shares a birth date with my sister. So it's this upcoming weekend, June 22nd. My sister's turning 30, which is really exciting. But I know the first year was really, really difficult for me. And I think it's evolved through the years in how I process it. I think I'm at a place where it makes me really happy that two people I love so much were born on the same day. But it definitely makes it interesting. I think that first year I was actually living with my sister. So there's, cake and we're going out to dinner and friends are in town while I'm also kind of dealing with this loss. And I found something that's really helpful to me is kind of taking time away. I like to go on drives and listen to like all of Ben's favorite songs and like a playlist and just belt my heart out in the car and just kind of take myself away, maybe go on like a walk and just kind of give myself this moment so then I can be more present and I think just more present and, celebrating my sister and being excited and, just obviously I love celebrating her and want to be there, but it's definitely important for me to kind of have that like centering moment and honor Ben first, and then kind of move into that more celebratory state. And like I said, it's changed different years. I know one year, and I think it's a little more morbid now that I look back on it, but I baked Ben's like favorite cake. And I mean, that was fun. It's like me doing an activity listening to music, and then I was able to share it with some other friends also. So I think that was a way of just, sharing in the love of this person. Also calling our like mutual best friend Jenna. She lives really far away, so on different like dates, we kind of call each other, and we're able to talk about our friendship and kind of keep this person alive in our memories and in our love. So that's something that's also been really special. But yeah, I can't wait to listen to the podcast. Thank you guys so much for providing your insight and just creating a space where people can talk about this openly.
Hey, Crystal, it's Pam wanting to share with you how I commemorate my dad after losing him actually 20 years ago this week. Obviously, it's gotten easier as the years have gone on, but it's still random where I find times just crying and missing him, being that he was such a wonderful man. But he passed away in 2004, and so that, I will say that Christmas, it was just too tough for my family and I to just deal with the fact that he was gone. It just wasn't going to feel like a normal Christmas. So we actually went away to Mexico for Christmas that year just to kind of give ourselves something different and something new to look forward to, I guess, in a way. But just a different experience. It was just going to be too tough being at home. So that was one way we dealt with his passing that particular year. But moving forward, every year, either around his birthday in January or in May, the month of his passing, on those dates, my dad was a big beer drinker, and so we try. It's kind of hard to find now, but we would try to locate his favorite beer, which is Genesee, and it's really not that great, but we will try to locate it and do a toast. My mom, my sister, and I, from afar, and toast to him and consume his favorite beer. Even though it was difficult, we would do it for him. That's really the only thing we've done in his memory that I can think of. That's pretty standard year after year. So those are my 2 cents.
It's a great question about milestone dates and celebrating mom when they come up. So it's been 7 years since she's passed away, and the first year was always hard. Like Mother's Day and my birthday are typically around the corner from her anniversary date. So those milestones were tough for a while, but as the years have passed, it's not so much that the milestones are tough. I think milestones are great reminders for me personally that she's with God and in a much better place in His keeping. So it feels peaceful when milestones come up. Often, though, we'll prepare something that was her favorite dish, and we'll put it on the table for the family. And for us, that serves a sweet reminder of mom. We also do things we have a group text, and someone will send out her favorite song. And then that's just comforting on those random days when you didn't even know that you needed a reminder. So it feels good across the heart. So I guess we don't necessarily wait on milestones to celebrate her, but we know that she lives in all of us in some small way in our lives. And so we try to keep her stories alive by telling them to the grandkids so that they can remember her. Because for them, I don't think milestones are really significant to them. I mean, they're kids, right? And they're young. They're not necessarily, that's not tugging on their heart. But again, we just try to tell all the great stories about her so that it allows her memory to continue to live. on. So yeah. So anyways, well, thanks for letting me share. Talk to you later. Bye.
So I lost my dad in 2016, and around the time of both his birthday and the anniversary of his death each year since. I don't really have like a formal ritual or anything that I do to recognize the milestones. Usually I just try to like be outside, either going for like a walk or a hike. And that partially is just to reflect, but if I'm being really honest, it's partially because I tend to get really tense during those times. It's not so bad anymore, but I used to like lock up completely. Like my upper body would get really sore. I wouldn't even be able to like turn my head. I would get so tight. And so part of I feel like the milestones were almost forced upon me because of this like somatic experience that I was having with my body. For a few years there, I was almost forced to like slow down on those days and like feel some feelings, which I now see as more of like a gift and a blessing, because I don't think I would have done it if that had been the case. I think I probably would have avoided those days. So yeah, just trying to be outside, trying to relax, and yeah, just trying to like feel good in my body and be present and kind of experience, be present with my own life. Yeah, hope that helps.
Milestones after a significant loss can be extremely triggering. I think for me, finding something to do on that day that honors the memory of the one lost, while also providing space for me to talk about them and acknowledge the importance of the day, has been incredibly helpful. My mom passed in 2012, and she loved a good soft pretzel. Loved them so much, in fact, that she had Auntie Anne's pretzels shipped to Alaska while we lived there. It's quite hilarious to look back on. So, it's fitting that now, every year on her birthday, as well as the anniversary of her passing, we go get a pretzel and a beer somewhere. It provides a positive space to talk about her and share her memory. It was extra special this year because we brought our son, who was only 4 months at the time. But I remember thinking that this was just one small way he would grow up, quote, knowing my mom, even though she is no longer with us. I now look forward to bringing him into this tradition, having an intentional space and time that we can share. It has truly allowed me to not dread these days as much as I once did.
Thank you for joining the Mourning Call podcast. Our intention is that you found a nugget of hope, inspiration, connection, or all of the above.
If you seek to dive deeper with the Mourning Call community, email us, subscribe to our page, leave a review, and fill out our survey.
We want to hear your stories and widen the conversation to support and empower our grief experiences as we collectively become our true selves.
Find us and subscribe on all streaming platforms, YouTube, and at Mourning Call Podcast on Instagram. You can also email us at morningcallpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast was edited by Alexis Carrasquillo from Familia Creative Media.